Well, here we are. It is, let's see, what's today? Friday, January 6th, 2022. And we're going to talk today a little bit about a sale that's coming up in New York that should interest a lot of you. If you like Chinese export and you like really, really fine Chinese export, this is an auction you want to chase after a bit. They have something at every price range. At the end, I'm going to show you some really great examples that have very modest estimates, which means they have very low reserves. And we'll get into that. But what I want to talk about is this sale. It's called it's the collection, part of the collection of the Cohen and Cohen. And if you don't know Cohen and Cohen, they are among the top dealers in the world for Chinese art, Chinese porcelain, and in particular, special emphasis almost exclusively on rare, very rare Chinese export wares of the 18th century. This is really their bailiwick. They have a massive reputation for it. There are certain dealers in the world who are just really well known. Eskenazi in London, Shacks in Hong Kong, Marchants in London, Ralph Chait Gallery, and Cohen and Cohen. And there are others, but these are some of the really big players. They've been around for half a century. Michael, Iwa, and the gang have been running this place for years, and we're going to go through and take a look at it. And this is a real event. And if you happen to be in New York, there's going to be a free lecture series that you don't need to register for this at this sale that is going to be given by Billy Sargent, who's the former curator of the Peabody Museum in Salem. He's a friend of mine. I know him. I've known Billy for many, many years. I knew him when he first went to work there. And Colin Sheaf, who I've also had some dealings with, is a terrific guy. And they're going to be giving a talk. Let's see, Colin and William will each present a fascinating lecture about the aspects of Chinese export art during the public preview of on the afternoon of Sunday, January 22nd. Okay, January 22nd in New York at 580 Madison Avenue. You can check with them about all the details. You don't need to register. You can just go and listen to it. And I can tell you, both these guys are phenomenal lecturers. Billy Sargent has written books. He gives lectures all the time. He's a great guy. He's very, very charming. Worth listening to. And Colin Sheaf has an encyclopedic knowledge of Chinese art. He's one of the real influencers in the world of Chinese art. There are certain people that are just considered to be top dogs, and Colin Sheaf is certainly one of them. Billy Sargent is certainly one of them, and they're going to be together, going to give a speech about this area of collecting regarding fine Chinese export art and so forth. And it's what they both sort of cut their teeth on this back in the 60s and 70s when Colin was getting into it, and then Billy Sargent came along a few years later and went to work at the Peabody Essex Museum under the guidance of the legendary Crosby Forbes. And Billy retired from the museum a number of years ago and has been working for Bonhams ever since. So anyway, that's the backstory to some of the other things that are going on. What's really interesting is a lot of the pieces that we're going to look at have been published. And they have apparently made arrangements, Cohen and Cohen has, to provide a copy of the catalog in which the item was published with each lot. If the book's available, assuming it is. Apparently they are for the most part available. So if you buy a particular piece, you're going to get the book that it was in years ago when it was published. The books have been they've been publishing an annual catalog for about 22 years. William Motley, who came to work for the firm back in around 2000, 2001, became their primary researcher. He also has a phenomenal knowledge about art. He's an art researcher, art historian in the truest sense. And at any rate, this is the company. This is the firm. And the catalog is on the site. It's on the Bidamount site. If you come over to the home page and scroll down to the magic red box right here, click it open. It'll bring you over to here. And it's the first book up here. And of course, it's always searchable. If you type in Cohen and Cohen, and 2 years from now, you'll get it. Or just Cohen, I think, will bring it up. But this is the catalog. It is beautifully illustrated. And it is an absolute feast of great objects in this sale. And they have some very interesting shots of the inside of their gallery, how it appeared. They had several galleries over the years. They moved several times as they rose up and to greater and greater prominence in the market. They moved to better and better locations, of course, in London. This is it. The catalog is in English and both Chinese. And as you can see, you're going to see some really, really rare export examples. And we're going to go through some of them. And at the end, we're going to talk about some that are in the catalog that you might have a shot at because they have fairly reasonable estimates. And the export market, as everybody knows right now, is a little bit soft. Not for any real reason. It just happens to be that way, even though the stuff is the finest export wares, my opinion is, and I think many people believe this too, the finest export wares of the 18th century were easily on a par with imperial wares. Okay, from a quality standpoint, you cannot say export wares were somehow inferior and that's why they were exported or something like that. Some of the export wares were done with such fantastic detail and of such high quality that they, in some cases, surpass Marken period porcelains of the Qianlong period, of the Yongchen period, and so forth. Because many of the decorators that worked on these export wares also worked on imperial wares, but they were getting paid more for the export wares. Export wares were the market that the Chinese workers wanted to work on because they got paid better. The pay was good, so they put their best artists to work and they produced some of these fantastic pieces. All right, and without further ado, let's take a look and see what's going on. This is the Bonhams site. And the catalog is easy. The listings are easy to find over here. I'll include a link below this video for it if you just want to go over and get right into it. And the lead lot in the sale, one of the lots that really caught my attention, I've seen these before illustrated, never seen them in person, is this fantastically rare piece of torchbearer Rococo candle sconces made for the European market in Chen. And these are big. These are 19 inches tall. These aren't little wall appliques. These are great big plaques. And they are of fantastic quality. And Bonhams has done a great job of loading images for this sale because you can really see the detail. You can really pull it in and get fantastically close, so you can examine the enamels. A lot of you have asked me, well, how do you identify things using enamels and looking at them? There are certain color palettes that are consistent during the 18th century that you don't see today, and there are certain colors they're using today that you didn't see in the 18th century. And once you learn the colors and learn how they were applied and can recognize them, you can date things. All right, and it's one of the hard things to do. It takes a lot of time, but these pictures really give everybody a chance to look at these in as good a quality and as best as you'll ever see on a website. I have to say that. I went through all of these and I was blown away by how big you can magnify these images. Just crazy big. All right. But this pair of plaques with these sort of pronk-like figures are just absolutely beautiful. Now, the estimate is significant. The estimate is $80,000 to $120,000. Now, relative to other Qianlong examples made maybe for their own domestic market, this is, believe it or not, pretty inexpensive for these. Whether they'll sell or not, I don't know. It's hard to predict, but they are running this right on the back end of Americana Week in New York, and I think that they're hoping to get some spillover from that crowd into this, people who collect American furniture or collect English furniture on the high end. are obviously also interested in Chinese export wares that would have gone with that furniture back in the day. So that you often find this is one of the big drivers. When you find great American and English furniture collections, you often find great China trade collections also tucked into it, and that's how many of them were in England back in the 70s. Mr. Sheaf, actually in the intro to this auction, talks about being in England back 50 years ago and how there was so much Chinese export wares still in British houses in the countryside. These old estates had massive dinner services of China trade wares that were still there. They'd never been disturbed. They'd just been using them, and this was pretty common back then. So it was a great time to get into it because you could see a lot of things and they were buyable. All right, but you have this pair of plaques, fantastically rare, great objects. And then on to this. We talk about chargers sometimes on here being big plates. All right, these plates are chargers. They are, I want to make sure I get the size right here. These are 22 inches in diameter. These are almost 2 feet wide, chin-lung period. Absolutely the best quality you're ever going to see. And one of the things that Cohen and Cohen, one of their big things was always condition. They were pretty much fanatical about rarity and condition and historic context. Who they were made for, when they were imported, that kind of thing. And these plates, if you look at them up close, they look just about as good as they did the day they were made. There are no chips, there are no nicks, there are no scratches, there are no repairs. You still want to ask for condition reports. There may be somewhere a repair on some of these pieces, but you can't see them, I can tell you that. But if you look at these, you'll notice the clear, crisp yellows, the beautiful rose enamels, that thickening familial rose that was really developed during the Young Chen period and was carried forward into the Qin Lung era. And these are just absolutely superb plates. Absolutely superb. They are estimated at $20,000 to $30,000 for the pair, or $10,000 to $15,000 a piece. But keep in mind the size, the rarity. 22-inch chargers do not turn up very often. If you've been collecting for any length of time, you know that. You know that even a 16-inch charger, an 18-inch charger in Chinese porcelain are very rare. Getting up into the over 20 inches, you're in a whole different world, and you just don't see them very often. They were always special orders, and they just don't turn up in the market. The typical plate sizes, you all know, is between 9 and 12 inches or so, typically. But these are enormous, and I don't think the estimate's unreasonable. I don't think the estimates are unreasonable on any of these lots, actually. It's just a matter of if there's enough interest out there. But, if you think back, when was the last time you saw a pair of 22-inch wide, perfect condition, familial rose, Qin-Lung chargers? In that size, you don't see them. There's maybe one of these for every 1,000 10-inch plates, if that many. Maybe not even, maybe 1 in 5,000. All right, and then over to this is this really, really rare, massive familial rose phoenix and tobacco leaf jardiniere or planter. They call it, or a fishbowl, as they call them. It is 23 inches in diameter. This is a big one, but the pattern on this is extremely rare. We've seen these before in familial rose. These big basins turn up, and sort of a regular familial rose palette, 18th century. Some figural scenes, balustrades, gardens, and all that. Here you have tobacco leaf. And tobacco leaf patterns were not used often on this. I don't know if this is a unique one or not, but it certainly is one of the rarest. And it has this beautiful phoenix on it, mixed in with the tobacco leaf. It's absolutely beautiful. Has beautifully done big handles on the end. Here's the interior of it. And you may look at it and say, gee, that looks just like the inside of a 19th century piece. Well, the late 19th century fishbowls, the interiors were copied after these early examples. And there it is. And there's the mask on the end. Beautifully done. It has that dry biscuit coating over it to make it stand out a little bit. But you'll notice when you examine this, again, all of the enamels are perfect on it. There's no wear, there's no scratches, there's no damage. Any place that's was gilded originally is still gilded now. let's see here. We're going to shrink this back down. It's estimated at $40,000 to $60,000, 23 inches in diameter. Not bad, not bad at all. And then you have things like this. We're going to get into more of these, but this was one I just threw in at the end when I was getting this ready to record it. Is this really nice Famille Rose European subject Part T service? All right, it's estimated at just $1,200 to $1,800. The only thing I don't like is I think their pictures are a little bit too small, but that's okay. We can deal with that. But you have this very nice partial dinner service, the European subject matter, nicely done. Looks a lot like some German and some European porcelains that were done that actually they were copying these. The Chinese were not copying them. They were copying the Chinese work because it was so popular at the time. And here you have this nice little service, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. Beautiful pattern. They look like they're in good condition. Love the teapot. I love the shape of that teapot. Estimated the whole lot is $1,200 to $1,800 for all 6 pieces. All right, which means that the opening bid is probably around $1,000, which is very reasonable. And then onto this, another very fine and, as they say, massive rose vert charger, circular charger. It is 18 inches in diameter. And again, an extremely rare animal. This is a really, really rare bird. If I can get it to load. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. Bonhams site is a little slow to load. I don't know. I think they need to do some work there. I noticed it earlier. Some of the images wouldn't load right away, so maybe be a little patient. But again, when you examine this plate, look at the condition of the enamels, the decoration. Not only is this plate very, very big, 18 inches in diameter, but meticulously painted, and all of the paint is in perfect condition. Again, absolutely superb, and very fine quality enamels, very, very elegant, very softly shaded yellows. This beautiful, beautiful iron red that they use, this orange tone that sort of dominates the plate, and then the work is punctuated by other colors and so forth. But finely detailed, a beautiful, beautiful example. And the estimate on it is $20,000 to $25,000, but a very, very rare plate, and they date it to the Chen period. And their dating is, I'm sure the dating and all that stuff came from a combination of conversations between Cohen and Cohen and Bonhams, but I'm sure that they went with Cohen and Cohen's suggestions as far as dating goes. Not that Bonhams wouldn't necessarily know, but Billy Sargent and Colin Sheaf certainly would know, but Cohen and Cohen also would know and provide all the information needed. The exhibition, this was for example, this was in the Golden Gate collection at Antwerp in 2018. It was published on page 181 and number 135. So if you buy this plate, you also get the catalog, which is pretty great. And don't forget that when you buy pieces like this that come from dealers like this, even though it's not the provenance of an old collection, you may be able to find out where it came from originally, what its roots were. But the point is that they're highly reputable dealers, and that is pulls a lot of weight down the road if you ever decide to sell anything or loan it somewhere. An institution want to borrow it, and you can say, well, we bought it at Cohen it was in the Cohen and Cohen book. All right, and then over to this. These many of you will recognize from having seen them before. These are the Parrot Garnishers that were in the Hudroff collection. Now, there are other examples of these around. These are not singularly unique or anything like that. It's sort of based, I think, on a Pronk design and so forth. But the Hudroff collection was, again, a private collection. They weren't dealers. Major collectors of Chinese export wares, and parts of their collections have been sold off over the years. And this was one of the lots that they sold a number of years ago. It was this. I think this may have been on the cover of an exhibition catalog or a book or something. Very, very rare, beautifully done, beautiful condition. They measure 11 inches tall, and they're estimated at $30,000 to $40,000, which sounds about right. Chance to buy them. There we go. And then, again, back to massive chargers. You have this. You have 3 massive blue and white Kangxi period chargers, 21 inches again, and almost 22 inches. They're 21 and 3/4 inches in diameter. And they are near exact matches to one another. There are slight variations in them. If you look at them carefully, you'll notice that, for example, the center ground on this one is more elaborately decorated than this one, and is, again, a little bit different than this one. They're all slightly different. This one tends to be a little darker than that one, and so forth. But obviously, they were made from the same pattern, but they were decorated by different people. So you do have slight variations and so forth. But all of them are enormous. These are very, very big plates, and with an estimate of $20,000 to $30,000, which means that they're figuring each plate is worth, somewhere between roughly $6,500 and $10,000 a plate, which I think is extremely reasonable. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see these sell for $12,000 to $15,000 a plate, because they're so big, it's so rare, and getting 3 of them in one bite for a collector is almost unimaginable. And they are all in very, very fine condition. And then other things that they had are the Tyrian Dancers. Now, these many of you will recognize right away, and some of you might not. A similar example was plucked up on one of the shipwrecks that was, I think it was in just whiteware. I think it was biscuitwares, or it became like a biscuitware because it was underwater for so long. But this particular pattern of these Tyrian Dancers model was also copied by Meissen and other factories. And they're the kind of thing that if you were to come across it in an antique shop, you might not give it a second glance, because you're just going to say, well, those are European porcelains, and I'm not interested in European porcelains. No, these are Chinese. These are Chinese. And these are very, very fine. So when you go into stores and you're shopping around and you're at an auction and you see porcelain figurines, when you see 18th century porcelain figurines, don't always assume that they're Meissen or French or something else, or Austrian. These are from China. And they are extremely rare. These are estimated at $20,000 to $30,000, and these figural forms are, very desirable, to say the least. They were made early in the Young Chen period, in the Qianlong period, around 1752, and they know that because, as one of the dating things, because of the example that was found on a datable shipwreck. And that's one of the ways they can arrive at a date of manufacture. All right, and then over to this. This is one of the more, we're going to get into a few of the more reasonable, what I call reasonably priced things, is this. This is a really rare little thing. I've only seen a couple of these. Last time I saw one of these, they called it a cruet. But it's a Kangxi period Amari monk's cap viewer and cover. It measures 5 inches tall. But this is a very rare piece of porcelain. There it is. Monk's cap viewers, as many of you know, typically are fairly tall, especially during the Kangxi period. They could be 10 to 15 inches in height. They often made them in pairs. They did them in porcelain. They did them porcelain with lacquer. They did them in wood. They did them in bamboo. They did them in all kinds of materials. These are porcelain examples with an Amari palette, which is quite unusual. Very, very attractive little pot. Really attractive. This is a gem of a piece of porcelain. And see if we can get some more images to load. Again, like I said, they're a little slow to load. There we go. There's the back of it. You can look down inside of it a little bit. But the quality of the photographs really get you into it, and you can get a good look. Love how they applied the leaf at the base of the handle, and you have this roux head on the end of it. And again, you have a form that was made for the export market using a Tibetan monk's cap viewer, which originally was done in a bronze form, with Chinese figures all over it, Chinese auspicious symbols and precious objects and so forth. But it still was made as export ware. Which I think is quite fabulous, and it's only estimated at $800 to $1,200, which I think seems awfully low. I wouldn't be surprised if this brought $4,000 or $5,000 or more, because if you think about it, it is fantastically rare and very early export trade. A very, very early piece of export ware. Go in and bomb this place with bids. That's all I can say. The same thing goes for this. This is a really nice, they call it a powder blue gilt punch bowl. It's 13 inches in diameter, chin lung period. I think it's chin lung period, or a little after. No, it's chin lung period. Okay, I thought it might have they might have thought it was Jai Jing, but at any rate, there it is. And the first thing that strikes you right off the bat is the power of the peony blossom in the center here. It is absolutely perfect. There's no chipping to it. There's no wear to it. Look at that. I mean, this is just as fresh as it was the day it was made. And the diaper pattern in gilt that runs around it is also in miraculous condition. And then you have the iron red in gilt interior, very typical of 18th century wares, Kangxi wares, Yongchen wares, Qinlong wares, and so forth. And there it is. But this is one heck of a bowl, 13 inches in diameter, and estimated at $1,200 to $1,800. I think that is, if you could buy it for anywhere close to that, you've got a heck of a buy, because the condition is so good. Over the years we see a lot of these powder blue bodies with gilding on them, and a lot of the time, 90% of the gilding is scraped off, rubbed off, and they still bring very strong prices. Here you have one that's appears to be pretty much absolutely perfect. $1,200 to $1,800. If you can get it in that price range, I think you stole it. To me, it looks like a $4,000 to $6,000 bowl, but who knows, in today's market. And then you have this Pronk-style Famille Rose yellow ground vases. These are not terribly tall, but they're good size, 12 inches tall, beautifully done. They have a $5,000 to $7,000 estimate, which is very, very reasonable. And you've seen these before. If you've been collecting export wares for any length of time, you've seen this shape before. Not always in yellow. I've seen them in pink. Here they are. There they are. Very nicely done. Beautifully done. And the enamels, again, of course, are perfect. There's no damage to them anywhere. Just very, very fine. And you'll notice that there's a slight greenish tinge on the white area, and that's because they've added a little bit to the glaze to give it some color, to play off of the yellow, because blue and yellow, very, very complementary colors. And there they are. This wonderful pair of urn type vases, estimated at $5,000 to $7,000. I think that's quite reasonable. And they were published, in the Antwerp book, Take Two, in 2017. Alrighty, and then moseying along over to this, another large Famille Rose physiognomy dish. It is 14 inches in diameter. And there's the, let's see here. There's the figures in the dish, and again, perfect condition, as you probably would expect at this point. Beautiful, bright colors. This plate is extremely energetic. For the color selection, the color values are all good and strong, so they can all play well together. Because as long as color values are the same in art, you can use almost any color with any other color. Where you get into trouble is if you're mixing pastels with hard colors or strong colors, then it tends to not work always that well, though it occasionally does. But in this case, you have very strong color values. They're all strong. The blues are strong, the greens are strong, the reds are strong, the yellows are strong, and they all pull in the same direction, giving you this very wonderful visual effect. And there are the faces. Study the faces always on these. And this plate, like I said, is 14 inches in diameter. It's got a $5,000 to $8,000 estimate. It's in beautiful condition, and it's a rare pattern. All right, and then over to this. This was one of my favorite things in the sale. And this, we've looked at some big chargers a while ago. This plate is Qinlong period. It measures 24 inches in diameter and is estimated at just $6,000 to $8,000. This is one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. It's actually sort of a basin, but the quality of work. Some of you may remember a few months ago there was on eBay, of all places, there was a plate that had the similar quality level in blue and white, and it was all broken into a million pieces. but it was, I talked about it a lot because I thought it was just such fantastic quality. And I think I even said at the time, occasionally a perfect one will turn up in the market, and they are unbelievable to look at. Well, this is one of them. And if you look at the fineness of the work, the fineness of the quality of the cobalt decoration on here, and look at the shading, the outlining, the detail, the proportion, the scale, how everything integrates so beautifully on this porcelain. Really find a Marken period imperial piece that's better, and you can't. That's the little secret. Is that if this were a piece made for the Chinese market, had a slightly different pattern, was in blue and white, and had a Chen lung mark on the back, and was 24 inches in diameter, it would be a $400,000 to $600,000 porcelain. That's my opinion. I absolutely love this piece of porcelain. It's great. Just $6,000 to $8,000, 24 inches in diameter, rare bird. It's a big plate. It's like this. Well, you've seen 24-inch vases. Imagine a plate that size, I guess. Very, very rare. And then over to this really nice famille rose globular form teapot chinlung. It's about 5 inches or so tall, 5.5 inches across. It's probably about 4 inches tall then if it's 5 inches across. Let it load up. Should play some Jeopardy music here, waiting for the thing to load. Okay, there we go. Like I said, they're a little slow. And again, you have another great example, and in perfect condition with great enamels. It's such a bounty, this sale of great things. There's a tiny frit here on the top of the finial, and it looks like it might have had a little nick out of the spout, but tiny, microscopic nick. But look at the detail of this work. Look at the enameling on this. Gosh, and it's a rare form on top of it. Those of you that buy teapots will know right away that this is an unusual shape. Let's see here. Estimated at just $700 to $1,000. All right, and then you have this, 2 famille rose cockerel dishes. The cockerel pattern are among the most collected of the Yongchen to early Qianlong period porcelains. And here you have them. There we go. Beautifully done with these invected corners running around it. Again, you have these very strong, equally strong reds, greens and yellows, and then punctuated with these black feathers on both of them. These are really pretty. These are very, very nice. And again, perfect condition. They measure 8 inches in diameter. So they're 8 inches wide by 8 inches wide, basically. Estimated at just $1,500 to $2,500. All right, and then over to this. This strikes me as I almost thought the estimate was a typo, and I'm not sure if they meant it or what happened, or maybe this is restored. I don't know. Get a condition report. But you have this hexafoil cylindrical tea caddy in famille rose, Yongchen period. There we go. And there it is. Okay, and this is a really rare bird. It's got several of these filler patterns here, and then these chevron devices at top, and then this very unusual color combination of red, yellow, and soft greens, and then you have this it's like a soft turquoise color around the top. Very rare. This is a really rare pot, and it's got a slew of labels on the bottom. And these all look, absolutely fine and legit. You see a lot of pieces these days are floating around with fake labels on them and so forth. But one of the things you have is that you have the Houdroff was part of the Houdroff collection at one point. It was in the Martin Hirst collection before that, and it was in the collection of J.F. Gieling, who I don't know. But there's another one here, exhibition stickers and so forth. Lots of information on the bottom of this pot, but this is a wonderful thing, and the estimate $800 to $1,200. I'll be pretty shocked if anybody pays so little for that. I will be very surprised, but again, it means the reserve is probably $600 or $700 on it, so it's certainly worth, take a shot, leave a bid on things like this because you might get it. You don't know what's going to happen I one time was bidding at an auction And they had it was back in the old days when Oriental rugs were bringing huge amounts of money. And I was looking for a dining room rug, a Persian rug for my house. And there were a bunch of good sales, bunch of good rugs in an auction. And the rug dealers back then were notorious for pooling and fighting with each other at auctions, trying to get things and getting other dealers not to bid on things and so forth. And they had this very, very fine Saruk carpet, one of the good ones. And it was 11 by 13 feet. And they were all over it. They were all staring at it. And then right before the rug came up, they got into a fight with one another. And they decided that they were sort of asked to leave the hall to resolve their issues. And while they were outside bickering, the rug came up and I bought it on the opening bid. And I paid, I think the opening bid was $1,500 or $1,800. That's all I ended up paying. And had they been in there and had it gone through what it should have gone through, the rug probably should have brought $8,000 to $12,000. But they weren't there. So you never know what happens in an auction, is what I'm saying. The computers could go out. They could have a problem in the middle of the lot recording it. So you want to leave it, especially with all this technology today, you really want to leave bids because you never know what's going to happen. Back when Sotheby's started their first auction site, this is an interesting little story. They were having a lot of trouble rather, getting the site to function. Lots would come up sometimes, other times they wouldn't. The programming on the site was such a bowl of spaghetti that nobody really knew what was going on. And in the first couple of auctions that they ran on Sotheby's.com way back in the 90s, there were some great bargains to be had, not because people weren't interested, it's because only people who were fantastically persistent, like yours truly, who kept trying to log in in the middle of the night, anytime they could get in there, and leave bids. And I left bids and bought a number of fantastically rare things from very, very good dealers who signed on with Sotheby's.com early on in the day. And I bought rugs and all kinds of things. So you don't know what's going to happen, all right? So always leave a bid. We used to have people who come through our auctions and leave pages of bids. And I don't mean 1 or 2 pages. I mean 10 or 15 pages. I had one guy once, he left a bid on 80% of the auction. He's a major dealer. He wanted a lot of the stuff. And he got probably about 10% of what he left bids on. So you never know. All right, and then you have this very rare Famille Rose. We'll get back to it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to digress with my stories. This Famille Rose spittoon or Jadot. This is a very rare one. It is estimated at just $500 to $700. It's 5 inches tall. It is a beautiful quality. Again, young Chen to early Qin Lung period. And again, if we can get it to load, like I said, you got to be patient these days with technology. There we go. It's here. All right, now pull this in. Look at this. And you recognize the pattern. You see these patterns on this pattern often on borders of big jars and vases and so forth. It's got a wonderful shape top, nice looking handle. Beautiful piece of porcelain. But the condition, again, fantastic condition. Fantastic. $500 to $700. $500 to $700 for that. All right. It may go for more. Leave bids. That's all I can tell you. Just leave bids. Carpet bomb this place with bids. And then you have this, a very, very fine pair of Yongchen Famille Rose water bottles, rose water sprinklers. This is a very popular form. A lot of these were made for the Indian market, the Middle Eastern market. Some of them were sent to Europe as curiosities, of course. And here they are. You'll find this form in all kinds of materials, but these were done during the Yongchen period. You have that wonderful Famille Rose. The Famille Rose on these in particular is very, very fine. It has there's quite a bit of translucency to it. And notice that the leaves go from a bluish toned green to like a soft celery green. And you have this blossom here radiating in that pattern, and in this pattern you have several different flowers and so forth right to the top. They look to be in fantastic condition, and they're estimated at just $1,000 to $1,500, and they measure 7 inches tall. All right, and then this snuff boxes. There are several good European snuff boxes. If you're a snuff box collector, you want to look at things. I think there's 2 or 3 good snuff boxes in here. This one I like because it was grisaille, sepia and grisaille decorated with the metal mounts. 18th century. There it is. And these are very, very rare. Snuff bottles, snuff boxes didn't survive because people had them around, they used them, they opened, they closed them, they got knocked off of tables, and they got damaged. And this one looks like it's in very nice condition. It's a pretty rare bird, $2,500 to $3,500, made right around 1750, very early in the Qianlong period. And then this tankard. Now, some of you will recognize this tankard with the elephant trunk handle. We'll pull it in. And many of you have seen this before. If you haven't seen this exact one, you might have seen other similar examples. A very, very rare tankard with its lid still. Notice it still has its lid, which is sort of a miracle. And nicely done. Again, cockerel pattern, beautiful rose enamels, beautiful blue overglaze enamels. Love the spiny handle here, the spiny back handle on this thing. Just a great piece of porcelain, made around 1740. This is almost Yongchen period, very, very early in the Qianlong period, extremely early export ware, very strongly decorated. It measures 8.5 inches tall and is estimated at $4,000 to $6,000. But in the world of tankards, export tankards, this is one of the rarest of the rare. It's much, much, much rarer than the later 1780s and 90s export wares with the figures on them that you see using that sort of stock pattern. This is a very early example of export ware. And then also this Famille Rose floral terrace bowl. It measures 15 inches in diameter. This is a good-sized punch bowl. And it's estimated at $2,000 to $3,000, which seems awfully inexpensive. Again, let the page load. There we go. And click it, pull it in. And we've seen this pattern before. You've seen these bowls before. And chipped and worn, they bring $600 to $800 pretty steadily in the 13-inch size, 12-inch size. In far from perfect condition, they bring around, just a little under $1,000 typically. This is one that has a very big, one thing, I love the foot on this. There's a good, nice, big, tall foot. Beautifully done flowers. The gilding is in great condition all the way around. It still has its rim dressing. I don't see any chips along this edge, which is very easy to spot on these if they have a chip, because it really violates that black line. You can spot it. But at any rate, the estimate is only $2,000 to $3,000 for this. Again, I think a great opportunity if you like really, really fine export wares. And again, this is early export ware. This is 1745, not 1780. All right, and then lastly is this 6 Famille Rose peony plates. People love these plates because you can decorate a whole wall with them. They measure 9 inches in diameter. They're estimated at $1,200 to $1,500 for the total for the 6. All right, which is a very, very reasonable. There they are, and again, superb condition. It's got this sort of pot sur pot white enameling around the outside. These beautiful flowers, beautiful overglazed blue enamels, and in beautiful condition. If you're going to bid on these, I would call and ask them for the pictures of each plate to make sure they're okay. I see tiny, tiny nicks. That's it on the brown dressing and two places. That's it after 250 years. Not bad. But the estimate is $1,200 to $1,500, or roughly, what does that work out to? $200 to $250 a piece, which I think is cheap. To be perfectly honest, I think that's a wonderful opportunity. Again, leave bids, go through, leave bids on this sale. And there's a lot to look at too. I don't want to act like this is it. There's this incredibly great blue and white garniture set, for example. It's estimated at $15,000 to $20,000. Let it load up here for a second, and I'll show you these. These are really, really nice. They're 9 inches tall, but come on, load up, Bonhams. There we go. There are these. And we've seen, many of you, if you collect, you've seen patterns or variant patterns of this style. Here's the entire garniture. the whole set. A pair of these, like these two bullet form jars with the lids on them, all right, by themselves, missing the other three pieces, will often sell in the $2,000 to $3,000, $3,000 to $4,000 range. But to have the complete set, it has a multiplier effect on the value. These are estimated at $15,000 to $20,000 for the 5 pieces, or around $3,000 to $5,000 each, roughly $3,000 to $4,000 a piece, which is, I think, very reasonable when you consider the fact that it's complete. You don't have to go look, because the chances of if you bought 2 of these separately at an auction somewhere, the chances of ever completing the set is almost impossible. You're going to get similar examples, but you're never going to match it. This is a match set, which makes them very, very, very rare. There's some enamel pieces in here. There's lots of figural porcelains. These Famille Rose Lady candle holders, $30,000 to $40,000. These Marielberg style wine coolers with the handles on the ends. What are those? $5,000 to $7,000. There's a big Indian embroidered textile. If you like textiles, you want to check that out. And on and on and on. There's some great examples in here. There's some nice big jars, lots of bowls, pistol-handled urns, very, very fine, and so forth. So go through this catalog, check it out on the website, register to bid, and go and bid. All right, I think that you'll be very, very happy. And one of the things, I meant to mention this. Hold on a second. This is maybe, and they're right. When I saw this, I said, I've never seen one of these before. In the description, they say possibly unique, and I think it probably is. Let it finish loading. When do you see this thing? And the estimate is very reasonable, $5,000 to $7,000. All right, this is a pen box, and it's done in the form of examples that you see that were made for the Islamic market. Sometimes this one is hinged with silver mounts, Chinese export wares with like a carrack or some sort of trading ship on the top of it. But the form is often associated with Middle Eastern wares, and it's Qianlong period, circa 1740. It's 6 inches long. Let's see, figures possibly European, and a small craft leaving a tree-lined shore with hilly backdrop, and so they just describe it. At any rate, that's a very rare thing. If you've never seen one of those, don't beat your head thinking about it. That is a very, very unusual piece of porcelain. Again, a chance to buy a great rarity with a very reasonable estimate. Believe it or not, $5,000 to $7,000 for that seems cheap, but very early, late. They're declaring it to be Qianlong period, so they must have some reason to date it there, because a lot of people looking at that would say it's probably Yongchen. But they for some reason are just out of the Yongchen period, which is fine. It's splitting hairs. It's like a year or two difference, and that's it. But again, another rare animal in this sale. Rare things. All the way down, candlesticks, these fantastically pretty blue and white pieces with very modest estimates, $800 to $1,200, $1,200 to $1,800. Another nice pair of candlesticks. Big pair of Famille Rose Mandarin patterned baluster vases, circa 1780, and so forth. So do check it out. I'll be back also today with the regular weekly video on the auction results and what's been going on in the rest of the world. But this I think is a great auction. I think I'm really in the last few months with that Rousset collection in France, and now you have the Cohen and Cohen stuff. It's good to see some really wonderful things come onto the market, and we may go a while before we see another one, but you always get a few great collections each year, and this I think is one of them, and I absolutely recommend it. And it's here in the U.S. If you're in the U.S., you don't have to worry about shipping from London or trying to get stuff out of France and all that. It's right here in New York. Many of you can probably drive there and pick up your purchases yourselves. All right, so there it is. So check it out and try to make it to that lecture. Don't forget about the lecture. I think that's great, and I would love to go to that myself, but I'm not going to be around. So I'm going to be up in New Hampshire probably. But at any rate, have a great week, and we'll see you all again next time. And give us a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't yet. We love getting new subscribers. And Happy New Year. All right. Bye-bye.